Her name was spoken in whispers, Elena Hart, the lawyer who never lost. Some called it skill, others luck. But in hushed voices, some dared to say it was magic, or even the hand of the supernatural. How else could she always find the truth, no matter how deeply it was buried? Today the world watched again. Would this be the case that finally brought her down? Or would Elena's legend grow even stronger? The courtroom was still, yet buzzing with tension. Every seat in the courtroom was filled, eyes wide with curiosity and anticipation. This wasn't just a trial. It was a mystery, wrapped in a scandal. A diamond necklace, priceless and dazzling. The star exhibit at a prestigious art gallery Gala had vanished into thin air. All fingers pointed to a struggling artist who had everything to gain from the theft. The prosecution was confident. Their case was airtight. Eyewitness testimony, security footage, and the artist's supposed motive. They painted him as desperate, a man who saw the gala as an opportunity to escape his financial woes. But at the defense table sat Elena Hart, a lawyer whose name sent ripples through the legal world. Known for her composure and brilliance, she had a way of unraveling even the most complex cases. To some, she was a savior. To others, an enigma. Elena rose gracefully, commanding attention as she approached the center of the courtroom. "Your Honor," she began, her voice calm yet authoritative. "The prosecution has presented a compelling narrative. But as we all know, a narrative is not the same as the truth. Today, I will show that my client is not the thief and that the true culprit has gone to extraordinary lengths to conceal their guilt." She held up a photograph of a distinctive leather-bound diary, the courtroom's murmurs growing louder. "This diary belongs to the museum director, a man who claimed to have no involvement in this theft. But footage obtained during discovery tells a different story. You'll see that he handled this diary repeatedly on the night in question. What makes this diary important is not its contents, but what it hides. A compartment containing critical evidence." The courtroom erupted into whispers, the judge silencing them with a firm rap of his gavel. "The diary," Elena continued, "is locked with a biometric thumbprint scanner, and the only thumbprint that can open it belongs to the museum director." The prosecution objected, dismissing the claim as speculative, but the judge allowed the demonstration to proceed. Elena's calm demeanor never wavered as 3 individuals tested the diary's lock. Each attempt failed. Finally, the museum director, pale and visibly shaken, was called to the stand. Under the watchful eyes of the courtroom, he placed his thumb on the lock. A soft click echoed in the silent room, followed by gasps from the audience. Elena retrieved a flash drive from the hidden compartment and inserted it into the courtroom system. The screen lit up, displaying grainy security footage from the night of the gala. The first clip showed the museum director removing the necklace from its display and slipping it into his pocket. The second clip revealed him planting evidence in the young artist's bag. Gasps filled the room, disbelief etched on every face. "Order," the judge commanded, his voice cutting through the noise. Elena turned to the jury, her voice steady. "The evidence is clear. My client is innocent. The true thief is the man who tried to frame him for his own crime." The courtroom erupted in chaos, and the director was taken into custody. The young artist wept tears of relief, while murmurs filled the room. How did she know? Elena returned to her seat, her expression calm and unreadable. The courtroom didn't know it, but they had just witnessed the beginning of something extraordinary. Elena Hart was born in a small Nigerian town. From the moment she arrived, people whispered about her. Behind her right ear was a tiny, unusual third ear. The midwife told her parents it was nothing to worry about, but they couldn't shake their uneasiness. They decided to keep it a secret from everyone. In their village, anything strange was seen as a bad sign. Neighbors began to notice that something was different about the baby. Soon, rumors started spreading, and people called her cursed. Her parents faced endless teasing and hurtful comments. They couldn't bear it anymore, so they packed up their lives and moved to Abuja, a busy and modern city. There, no one knew them, and Elena could grow up away from the judgment of the village. Elena's special ability first showed itself when she was 6 years old. One day, while she was playing in the living room, a neighbor came to visit her mother. Out of nowhere, Elena said something the neighbor had been thinking but hadn't said out loud. Her mother froze. How could Elena have known that? At first, they thought it was just a lucky guess. But over time, it happened again and again. It became clear, Elena could hear people's thoughts. At first, this frightened her family. The non-stop flood of voices made Elena cry, and she often felt like she was going crazy. Her parents wanted to help her, so they tried many things. Eventually, they found that listening to calming music through headphones helped block out the thoughts. From then on, whenever the noise became too much, Elena would put on her headphones. This brought her some peace, and over time, she learned to use her gift only when she needed it. Even as a child, Elena amazed her family. She could find lost items around the house without being told where to look. If her siblings misplaced something, she always seemed to know exactly where it was. But her gift also made her family nervous. Her siblings avoided thinking freely when she was around, worried that she might hear their private thoughts. They often asked her to wear her headphones when they wanted to talk about personal things. At university, Elena's gift became a quiet but powerful tool. She never told anyone her secret, but people noticed how clever and sharp she was. One time, a professor lost an important exam script, and everyone was panicking. While others searched all over, Elena calmly pointed them to a pile of papers where the missing script was hidden. Her classmates were amazed, but Elena stayed quiet about how she knew. Despite her abilities, Elena never used them for selfish reasons. She could have taken advantage of people or made a lot of money, but she didn't. She always stayed true to her values, using her gift only to help others. Her honesty, intelligence, and determination set her apart. These qualities, combined with her gift, made her unforgettable. They also paved the way for her to become a lawyer who always uncovered the truth, leaving people wondering how she did it. Back in the courtroom, whispers filled the air. The jury had left, but the art director sat in shock, unable to understand what had just happened. How did she know? I never told anyone about my plans, he thought, his mind racing and numb with shock. Not in a million years did he think he would be caught. He had a perfect plan, or so he thought. But with Elena and her special gift, there is no perfect plan, as her third ear can hear your hidden thoughts. For anyone wondering how Elena Hart uncovered the truth, the answer lay in the gift she was born with. Hidden under her long hair, she had a tiny third ear that could hear what others could only think. This special gift allowed her to hear people's deepest thoughts, the things they didn't dare say out loud. During the trial, while the museum director confidently denied his guilt, his thoughts told the real story. The diary is safe. No one will find it. Those words, though unspoken, gave Elena the proof she needed to reveal the truth. Elena's long hair wasn't just for beauty. It hid her secret. People admired her for how she looked, how she carried herself, and how she always stayed calm. No one knew that her gift was the reason she always seemed one step ahead. Her victories in the courtroom earned her the nickname, the finisher. Everyone who faced her knew they would lose, but they didn't know why. They thought it was luck or genius. But Elena knew it was her third ear helping her hear the truth that others tried to hide. As she walked out of the courtroom that day, people stared in awe. They had seen her win again, but no one could explain how she did it. For Elena, the answer was simple. Her gift let her uncover the truth, and she used it to bring justice to those who needed it most. While people admired Elena as the finisher, there was another lawyer whose name struck fear in everyone. David Hunter, also known as the Wolf. Hunter was not just good at winning cases. He was ruthless. Facing him in court was like walking into a trap. He could tear apart any argument and leave his opponents embarrassed and doubting themselves. Lawyers often whispered about how sharp and cruel his cross-examinations could be. Hunter's life was as loud as his victories. He lived in a massive mansion, drove fancy cars, and only worked with the richest and most powerful clients. These clients paid him huge amounts because they trusted him to win every time. But Hunter wasn't just about the money. He loved the thrill of the courtroom, the feeling of power when he outsmarted everyone else. He played the legal game like a wolf hunting its prey, smart, fast, and always one step ahead. While Elena brought hope and justice, Hunter was the opposite. She lifted people up, but he broke them down. Everyone knew it was only a matter of time before these two powerful lawyers would meet. When they did, no one would ever forget it. Hunter was working on a high-profile case called the Scandal of the Century. A famous woman was found dead at a fancy charity event. All the clues pointed to her husband, a billionaire. The police found an angry text he sent, poison in his study, and proof they often argued. Most people thought he was guilty. Then came Hunter. He walked into the courtroom with confidence, ready to defend the husband. Everyone thought the case was hopeless, but Hunter didn't care. He started by showing problems with the police's story. He explained that the poison wasn't special. It was something anyone could find in cleaning products. Next, he surprised everyone with new evidence. Hunter showed a video from the charity event. It revealed a waiter secretly putting something into the woman's drink. The waiter wasn't really a waiter. He was a journalist trying to hurt the couple's reputation. Hunter asked tough questions and showed that the main witness, a neighbor who claimed to hear the couple fighting, was lying to get money. One by one, he proved the witnesses couldn't be trusted. At the end of the trial, Hunter spoke with power. This case isn't about justice. It's about finding someone to blame. My client isn't the bad guy. The real guilty person is still out there. The jury thought for hours before deciding the husband wasn't guilty. When they announced their decision, the courtroom was shocked. Hunter walked out a winner, and everyone was talking about his big victory. But across the city, Elena was preparing for her next case. She didn't know it yet, but soon, her path and Hunter's would cross. It would be a battle like no other. After the courtroom victory, Hunter couldn't wait to celebrate. As soon as the jury said, "Not guilty," he walked out of the courthouse with a proud smile. Reporters and photographers rushed to him, shouting his name. He said something clever, gave a small grin, and got into his shiny black Rolls-Royce. The car sped off, leaving the crowd behind. That night, Hunter went to the best club in the city. The music was loud, and the lights were bright. Dressed in a fancy suit, he held a glass of whiskey and stood like he owned the place. People stared at him as he walked in, and beautiful women gathered around him, trying to talk to him. He smiled at them, charming everyone. By the next morning, the party was over and Hunter moved on. He didn't care about staying in one place or with one person. Winning cases and living a flashy life were all that mattered to him. He had everything: fast cars, private jets, and clothes that looked like they belonged to a king. People didn't just hire him to be their lawyer. They wanted Hunter, the famous wolf, who never lost. But even as he celebrated, something bigger was coming. Soon he would face Elena, and this time the game would be different. Hunter's celebrations never lasted long. By the next day, he was back at work, seated in his sleek, glass-walled office high above the bustling city. The view was stunning, but Hunter hardly noticed it. For him, work was everything. One afternoon, a wealthy family arrived at his office. They looked nervous, their desperation clear. "We need the best," the father said, placing an envelope on Hunter's polished mahogany desk. Hunter leaned back in his chair, skimming the documents inside with little interest at first. Then, with his usual calm confidence, he mentioned his rate. $2,500 an hour, he said casually. Hunter didn't work for cheap, and he didn't charge in Naira. His clients were the country's elite, and they paid in US dollars. The family didn't flinch. "You'll have whatever you need," the man replied. That was all Hunter needed to hear. His eyes gleamed as he scanned the case details. It seemed simple, a case he could win easily, another trophy for his record. What Hunter didn't know was that this case would change everything. It would bring him face to face with Elena, the finisher. For the first time, his charm, wit, and power would be tested like never before. Their clash wouldn't just be about winning. It would become a battle of pride, skill, and the very different values they stood for. While Hunter lived loudly, surrounded by luxury and attention, Elena's life was much quieter. She avoided socializing too much. Her secret, the small third ear hidden under her long hair, made her wary of getting too close to anyone. She couldn't risk someone noticing, so she kept people at a distance. Sleepovers, nights out, or even having friends over were out of the question. To protect herself, she lived as a loner, focused entirely on her work and her mission for justice. But that didn't make her weak. It made her focused, determined, and ready for any challenge. And soon, her path would cross with hunters, setting the stage for a confrontation no one would forget. Hunter leaned back in his chair, flipping through the file again. He felt confident, but something about Elena's name kept nagging at him. He decided to dig deeper. Over the next few days, he called lawyers who had faced her in court. Every story was the same. Elena found things no one else saw. She tore apart cases with ease, leaving her opponents speechless. Any case she touched was a winning case. Social media wasn't quiet either. People were buzzing about her. They called her a genius, a mystery, a legend in the courtroom. For the first time in a long while, Hunter felt something unusual, a mix of curiosity and unease. He pushed the feeling aside. "She's good," he said to himself, "but not better than me." The trial date was getting closer, and the legal world couldn't stop talking about it. News headlines screamed about the clash of two giants. Hunter, the bold and brilliant lawyer with a 95% win rate, against Elena, the undefeated finisher. Everyone was watching, waiting to see who would win. For Hunter, this wasn't just another case anymore. It was personal. The day had come. The courtroom was packed with people. Everyone wanted to see the battle between the finisher, Elena Hart, and the wolf, Hunter. Michael sat beside Elena, looking nervous. Across the room, Lisa's wealthy family sat with Hunter, their lawyer. They accused Michael of killing Lisa, but Michael insisted he was innocent. For Hunter, this case wasn't just another job, it was personal. The trial began. Hunter presented his case first. He showed the jury evidence that Lisa's belongings were found in Michael's car. Witnesses said Michael and Lisa had argued days before the wedding. Hunter painted a picture of a jealous fiancé who couldn't handle rejection. The jury looked unsure, and things didn't look good for Michael. Then it was Elena's turn. Calm and sharp, she started asking Lisa's father questions. As he spoke, Elena heard his thoughts. He thought, "She's safe at the estate. They'll never find her." Elena's heart raced. She had found her first clue. Lisa might be alive, and the estate could be the key. Elena didn't show any reaction. She kept her focus and moved on with her questions. That evening, Elena asked her team to dig into the family's records. They found something strange. The family had hired a private driver on the wedding day. His logbook showed a trip to a faraway estate. Elena knew this was the break they needed. The next day in court, Elena presented the driver's records as evidence. She asked the court to allow a search of the estate. Hunter objected, but the judge agreed. The police searched the estate and found Lisa alive. She was scared and upset, but she told the truth. Her family had forced her to hide because they didn't want her to marry Michael. Back in court, Elena played a recording Lisa had secretly made during her last argument with her parents. In the recording, Lisa begged them to let her marry Michael. The jury listened carefully, and by the end, it was clear that Michael was innocent. The verdict was announced. Michael was found not guilty. The courtroom erupted with cheers. Lisa's family was charged with lying to the court and trying to frame Michael. As for Hunter, he was stunned. His airtight case had crumbled. He couldn't stop thinking about how Elena had found out the truth. For him, the loss wasn't just embarrassing. It made him curious. How did Elena always win? Elena and Michael left the courtroom victorious. The public praised Elena's brilliance, and whispers about her abilities only grew louder. For now, though, she kept her gift a secret and focused on what mattered: fighting for justice. The judge announced, "Not guilty." The courtroom filled with noise. Some people cheered, others gasped. But Hunter just sat still. His face didn't change, and he stared straight ahead. Inside, he was boiling. This wasn't just any loss. It was his first loss in 8 years. And it was Elena who had beaten him. She had destroyed his perfect record in front of everyone. Hunter stood up slowly and fixed his tie. People were whispering, but he didn't care. He turned to Lisa's family and said, "We'll talk later." His voice was calm, but his jaw was tight. Elena walked past him on her way out. Their eyes met for a second. She gave him a polite nod, but Hunter didn't say anything. He just watched her leave, his mind racing. As reporters crowded outside, Hunter walked right past them. He didn't stop to talk. He didn't want to. All he could think about was how Elena had won. That night, Hunter sat in his office. The room was dark, and the only light came from his desk lamp. He stared at the papers in front of him, but his mind was stuck on the trial. How did she know about the estate? About the driver? About everything? For weeks, Hunter couldn't stop thinking about it. He started digging into Elena's past. He read every case she had ever worked on. He watched old videos of her in court. He wanted to find her weakness. But the more he learned, the more impressed he became. "She's different," he muttered. "There's something about her." Hunter's obsession with Elena wasn't just about the trial anymore. It was about her. He thought about the way she smiled when she was about to win. The calm way she spoke, even when the pressure was high. The confidence in her every move. At first, he told himself he just wanted to beat her next time. But deep down, he knew it was more than that. He couldn't stop thinking about her intelligence, her presence, and the way she had outsmarted him. And to top it off, her beauty. What is it about her? He asked himself one evening. He didn't have an answer. A few weeks later, Hunter saw Elena outside the courtroom. She was walking to her car, holding her briefcase. He walked up to her and smiled. "You owe me dinner," he said. Elena stopped and raised an eyebrow. "I don't owe you anything, Hunter." He smirked. "You made me lose my first case in 8 years. The least you can do is let me take you out." Elena shook her head and laughed. "Nice try. I'm not interested." As she walked away, Hunter called after her. "This isn't over, Elena." Over the next few weeks, Hunter tried everything. He sent flowers, dinner invitations, and texts that were funny and thoughtful. Elena ignored most of them. She knew about his playboy reputation and thought he was just playing a game. But Hunter didn't give up. And even though Elena didn't trust him, a small part of her wondered, what if there's more to him than I think? But Elena didn't let her guard down. She couldn't. Her third ear was her biggest secret, and she worked hard to keep it hidden. Her long hair wasn't just a style, it was her shield. Letting someone get too close meant risking everything. Being in a relationship wasn't an option. Spending time with someone could lead to questions she couldn't answer. People might notice how she always seemed to know what they were thinking. Elena had too much to lose, so she stayed distant. That's why she brushed off Hunter's advances. He might have been persistent, even charming, but she wasn't going to take any chances. Her gift and her career were too important. Elena walked into the grand hall where the city's top lawyers had gathered for the annual legal gala. It was a night to celebrate achievements and connect with others in the legal world. The room sparkled with golden lights from the chandeliers, and soft music filled the air. Elena turned heads as she entered, a dress that shimmered under the lights, hugging her figure perfectly. Her long hair, stunning as ever, flowed freely over her shoulders. Tonight she was stunning. Hunter, standing near the bar, felt his breath catch when he saw her. He was used to seeing Elena in sharp suits, always professional and guarded. But this was different. She was gorgeous, and for a moment he couldn't look away. Elena joined a group of colleagues, chatting and laughing softly. But even as she smiled, she felt Hunter's gaze on her. When she glanced toward the bar, their eyes met. Her heart skipped, and she quickly turned back to her group. But the pull between them was undeniable. All night, their eyes found each other. Hunter couldn't focus on the conversations around him. Even when he danced with someone else, he kept glancing toward Elena. And when Elena caught his gaze, her heart raced in a way she didn't understand. Finally, Hunter couldn't take it anymore. As the music slowed, he crossed the room. Elena saw him coming, her breath catching as he stopped in front of her. "Elena," he said, holding out his hand. "Would you dance with me?" Elena hesitated for a moment, her mind racing. But something in his eyes made her say, "All right." Hunter led her to the dance floor. The music was soft and slow, and the world around them seemed to fade. His hand rested lightly on her waist, and her hand touched his shoulder. They began to move in sync, their steps unhurried. For a while, neither of them spoke. Their eyes locked, and the silence felt heavy with meaning. The tension between them had been building all evening, and now it was almost too much to bear. "You look beautiful tonight," Hunter said softly, his voice steady but warm. Elena's cheeks flushed. She looked down for a moment before meeting his eyes. "Thank you," she said quietly. Hunter's grip on her waist tightened slightly as their movements slowed even more. "You've been avoiding me," he said, his voice low. Elena smiled faintly. "Have I?" "Yes," he replied, his gaze never leaving hers. "But not tonight." The space between them grew smaller. Elena's breath hitched as Hunter leaned in. She could feel her heart pounding, but she didn't pull away. Their lips met in a soft, lingering kiss, one that seemed to stop time. It was gentle at first but grew deeper, electric, and impossible to ignore. When they finally pulled apart, Elena's eyes were wide, her cheeks warm. She stared at him, unsure of what to say. Hunter smiled, his voice quiet but full of confidence. "I've been waiting to do that all night." Elena stepped back, her heart still racing. "Good night, Hunter," she said softly before turning and walking away. Hunter stood on the dance floor, his smile never fading. He knew this wasn't the end, it was only the beginning. While Hunter was busy trying to win her over, someone else had a very different plan. Victoria Peter, a sharp and ambitious lawyer, had lost a big case to Elena months ago. That loss embarrassed her and cost her an important client. Victoria couldn't believe Elena had beaten her fairly. She was convinced Elena had some kind of trick and was determined to find out what it was. She hired a private investigator to follow Elena. The investigator was careful, watching Elena's every move, her trips to court, her time at home, even her outings like the Gala. But Elena's life seemed perfect on the surface. Still, the investigator noticed little things like how Elena often wore AirPods or seemed extra cautious around people. Victoria, however, was growing impatient. "Keep looking," she told the investigator during a private meeting. "There's something she's hiding, and I'm going to find it." Meanwhile, Hunter couldn't stop thinking about the kiss. As he sat in his car later that night, replaying the moment, he smiled to himself. For the first time in years, he felt something new, something real. But he also knew Elena wouldn't make it easy. She was guarded, careful, and had secrets he couldn't yet understand. Elena, on the other hand, couldn't shake the feeling of Hunter's lips against hers. As she drove home, she caught herself smiling, then quickly shook her head. "Focus, Elena," she muttered. She had spent years building walls to protect herself and her gift. Letting Hunter in was risky, but something about him was different. For now, she wasn't sure if she could trust him, or herself. While Elena and Hunter wrestled with their feelings, Victoria sat in her office, staring at a stack of files. At the top was Elena's name. She tapped her pen against the desk, her thoughts swirling. "There's no way she's this perfect," she whispered to herself. "No one wins this much without a secret." Across town, the investigator flipped through the photos they had taken of Elena over the past week. They stopped at one where she looked lost in thought, her AirPods tucked neatly into her ears. "What are you hiding, Elena?" they murmured, narrowing their eyes. Elena, unaware of the danger circling her, focused on what mattered most, fighting for justice. But in the shadows, her enemies were closing in, determined to uncover the truth she had worked so hard to protect. This was only the beginning.